Recording has started.
Hello, welcome everyone to this amazing conversation as we're looking at Black farmers and Black labor. And we're going to talk about the economic impact. And so today I am going to start with some introductions. And let me first start introducing, and we'll start with Ann Sutton is actually going to be here and she's going to be speaking with us. We also have Tope, who is the Chief Financial Officer of the U.S. headquartered global nonprofit organization, and she's passionate social impact entrepreneur. She actually founded the SHEO, a global platform for women of African descent, and the United for Kids Foundation. Her commitment to African development has further amplified through hosting Impact Africa. A former lecturer at the University of Maryland, Tope has worked at top firms like Arthur Andersen and PwC. She and her husband co-own Dodo Farms, a certified natural grown produce farm in Maryland. And she's an accomplished speaker and author who works includes Lovin' Cancun, Soulful Whispers, and A Mile in My Shoes. Dr. Bill Relaford, DMP known as the Doctor and the Farmer, is a visionary leader in healthcare innovation and community empowerment. As the co-founder, president, and CEO of the Wound Pros, the largest wound care organization in the United States, and owner of Bloom Ranch, the largest Black-owned ranch in Los Angeles County, he is revolutionizing health and wellness. With over 35 years of experience in diabetic limb preservation, Dr. Relaford has developed AI-driven technology called the Rapid Imaging Technical Assistant, enhancing wound care precision and patient outcomes. Beyond clinical care, he founded the Black Barbershop Health Outreach Program, which has educated over 30,000 men and created the Real Pharmacy, delivering fresh produce to underserved communities to address nutrition related healing challenges. The stewardship of Bloom Ranch exemplifies his commitment to sustainable agriculture and community empowerment. Additionally, Dr. Relford owns Casa Loche, the only Black-owned winery in OJ, further extending his influence in sustainable and community-focused initiatives. And we also will have joining us Theolonis, who he owns the mighty Thundercloud Edible Forest. I also want to introduce you to Mia Thomas, student of Health Sciences Department, and she will be interviewing our panelists today. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, should we get started? Okay, so the first question I have for you guys is, could you share your family's history in farming or what inspired you to become a farmer?
Okay, this is Farmer Gail. I'll jump in. So my family history in farming is I am a first generation Black female farmer in the United States. My family migrated to the U.S. in 1980 from Guyana in South America, and I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Migrated then to Maryland to finish high school and became interested in agriculture, which was directly tied into to mental health related issues I experienced in 20 was 2018, 2019. I had an incident occur, and as part of my treatment, I embarked on gardening, and that led to me ending up in farming.
Okay. It was cool that you said Guyana because that's where my grandfather is from, so I just wanted to put that out there.
All right. Guyanese in the house.
Yes.
Uh,
Anybody?
uh, I think I can go next as a Nigerian who believes that Guyana and all the other diaspora African places are also extension of Nigeria. I got into farming in the US because of my husband who moved to the US and said all he wanted to do was to farm. But I'm also from a long lineage of farmers. My dad, apart from being an engineer, was actually also a farmer. So farming has been something that I grew up with from when I was a young child.
Great. Uh, Thank you so much for putting together this amazing program. Uh, Really, really special. Requires a lot of hard work and leadership. And I'm going to jump in and ask the question. I'm from Oklahoma. That's where I was born. And my family were farmers then. And I remember as a little kid, the peaches and the apples and the greens and all the fresh produce. Of course, family moved to Los Angeles and went to medical school. So now I'm full circle. When I understand now more than ever the importance of the real pharmacy or food as medicine, as a healthcare provider specializing in preventing amputations in high-risk populations domestically and internationally, no one really talks about food and the role food plays in addressing chronic diseases such as diabetes, high blood pressure, kidney failure, so on and so forth. I really leaned into farming. I wrote a book several years ago called Five Colors a Day to Better Health, when all my patients that were the healthiest ate five colors. Really smart people sometimes have a difficult time talking to everyday people. Of course, you hear the American Heart Association, American Diabetes Association, they'll say eat 5 to 7 fruits and vegetables. We've heard that. The problem is no one knows what the serving is when they get to the restaurant. So I had said, let's if you can count to five and you know five colors, then those are my healthiest patients. So with Bloom Ranch, it was one of those serendipitous things that became available. And sometimes what you're seeking is also seeking you as well. Bloom Ranch is a 127-year-old farm. I happen to be the proud steward, third owner of this amazing property. And I have amazing partnerships with Black farmers in the community, Black workers and people, Black and brown people that have helped make Bloom Ranch what it is today.
Thank you. We have Theolonis for him to answer that question.
Yes, so my family actually originated up north from Ohio and Pennsylvania. And my mom, once she divorced, relocated us down to Virginia when I was at a very young age. And, for the first few years of our life, we kind of moved around, from apartments, here and there. But she eventually remarried, and we moved into our first house. I was probably about 7 or 8 years old, and my stepfather actually grew up on the Eastern Shore. He came from the country, from a long line of farmers, and my mom.
I think he froze on us.
That's okay. He froze. Mia, you can go to the second question.
Okay, so for my next question, what changes have you observed in aquaculture labor practices from previous generations to now?
McGill, do you want to go first? So we
So
mention the
let
other.
someone else go
Yes.
first this time.
No,
But
no.
okay, I'll jump in.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so when I initially started farming, I did not have the challenges finding labor that I experienced in the last 5 years. There was always someone around that was, capable and willing to work on the farm for the wages that were being paid at the time. And they were fairly consistent. Um, and over the past 10 years, the trend that I've seen is a shift in that. There is more and more individuals that will present themselves for those positions as, oh, I really want to work on a farm because I want to learn. Really, that's not, they don't want to work on a farm. They need to go to a farm training program. Um, I made the mistake in say the first 3 years of the acquisition of my current operation, and kind of falling into the trap of, okay, well, I'll hire these folks and give them a chance, which almost bankrupted my operation. Um, Now, the trend that I'm seeing is that more and more of us, we are having to seek foreign labor for our workforce. Because it's more reliable, more consistent, and the individuals that we get through that H2A program, are way more focused on they're here to work. They're here to perform a specific task for a specific wage, and they're not going to not show up or call out sick, or they're going to put in their reasonable 10 hours if that's what you're doing per day. And so, it's unfortunate that we've had to resort to that pool, but that's where we are right now. And I'm hoping that at some point in time in the future, we can see shifts in that trend. But for right now, for our operations to be sustainable, that is where we are.
And I'd like to chime in with Farmer Gail at Bloom Ranch. We have some similar challenges too. Everybody wants to, work on the farm and come out there and volunteer and see what we're doing. But as competitive as things are, we don't have time to babysit people and do things like that. We need people that can really, really work. And what I found is the change in our work ethic as a people. We got to do some soul searching,
Yes.
some real, real soul searching. And I think
Yes.
that's a conversation that we have not had. We can point the finger at other people, but I've had people come on the farm that work one day, our color, they don't show up. And then we have immigrant workforce that work uh, through the day, early in the morning, all through the day, in the heat. It's very hot in Acton. It can be 110 degrees, and they don't flinch. And so,
Yes.
but I do have a number of very young African American men who were not successful in school, traditional academia, and so they did find a passion on the farm. The one thing about the farm is you've got to be present. You can't do TikTok and Instagram when you have that shovel in your hand. You can't have the camera like this and doing this. You have to be fully engaged. You have to be fully present. However, there's a lot of mental health benefits of being on a farm. We have the benefit of accomplishment. I grew this and I was able to have its impact on someone's palate or nose or something like that. So I think the challenges are that we've got to do some soul searching as a people about our work ethic. And I'll leave it there.
So the way I want to come at this is from my wearing my university professor hat. When I started teaching agricultural business at the University of Maryland, the average age of farmers in Maryland was 55. Now the average age of farmers in Maryland is well over 60. That is something that is definitely creeping up, and we're not paying attention. At the same time this is going up, we're also seeing the poverty rate in Maryland go up. Now, an average of 1 in 10 families in Maryland is going hungry. And even though we see the emergence of food banks and all of this food assistance providers around, I want us to pay attention to the quality of food that the poor and the food insecure are getting. When you go and drop food in these food assistance providers, most of the time we're the only ones dropping fresh produce. We're the only ones dropping things that are really good for the soul. And so that is why, if we look at aging of farming is going up, young people don't want to be in a profession where they earn less than $10,000 a year. Women don't want to be in the profession where they cannot provide for themselves. At the same time, people are getting poorer and more food insecure. This, I think, is a challenge that we have to deal with as people. And we have to go back to our roots, especially as Black people. I went to the George Washington Mount Vernon estate once, and I saw all of these young kids running around the graves and really just disrespecting the whole thing. And then I said to myself, this place where we're stepping on, we all have to go back there. We have to go back to those men and those women who were brought, who hid seeds in their hair, who, even when they were given freedom in quote, were not allowed to farm what they wanted or to charge the prices they wanted to charge. But we are allowed to do same, to do differently. So now we have to go back and restore the glory of agriculture to what it needs to be. So those are the changes that I'm tracking.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, Thelonious.
Yes.
All right, sorry. Yeah, I mean, basically what everybody has already said, but I think what's really changed on Black farms used to be able to rely on, the next generation, your kids, whether that was forced or whether they just wanted to inherit, the family business. But as everyone has pointed out, I was just talking to or talking with another farmer about one of the largest landowners on the Eastern Shore where I farm. She has over 400 acres, separate plots, everything, but has none of her children want to take on, the farm. And the reality is that the next generation, we're losing them to, the competition of corporate jobs and the lure of, urban cities. And that's exactly what you see in developing countries. I remember being in Africa, and I mean, you could drive for miles and miles and miles, literally hours, and see nothing but land and trees and everything. And then as soon as you get into the city, you can't move an inch without, rubbing shoulders with somebody. And so I think as a community, we don't really value our farmers in the same way we value our computer programmers or our doctors for that matter. And as we're starting to understand, like doctors pointed out, food is medicine. So we as a society need to value our farmers more, and then that occupation will be more attractive, to the next generation. And then there's all the other intangible things that, that don't show up on the bottom line, like the healing, aspects of it. And these are things that we specialize in.
I'd like to chime in on that. As a physician, entrepreneur, and farmer, I have kind of a unique perspective on, I think, some of the opportunities that we may not be uh, contemplating. For example, um, we have a metric on our farm that everything we grow has to have at least check 5 to 6 boxes. For example, if we grow a calendula or marigold flower, one is agriculture or agritourism. Two, can you cut it and can they take it? Three, can you dry it and use some type of apothecary? Four, can you do some kind of oil infused product? Five, with that oil infusion, can you make a skincare line, a soap, a body butter? So we have seen tremendous traction when we talk about farm to beauty. We may have to, I'm not saying that no one has done that, but I'm saying that I've seen enormous traction. I have two daughters and a son. One daughter has an amazing skincare line called Mary Louise Cosmetics. And some of the things, and she's been in Sephora, she's been in Macy's and JC's Penney's, and now we're leaning into farm to beauty. And that, so I think some creativity around that. And then what about, the seasonings, that you can grow and put on the market? I think if we could show our kids that is more to it than just selling a bunch of greens or a basket of this, but something that they can be in the business with that may not be on the farm, but connected to the farm. That's what I've
Exactly.
seen. And I'm making any assumption that no one has done that. I'm just thinking I would share that if you like peach preserves, apple preserves, someone's grandmother can get involved and would love to do some of that knowledge transfer to granddaughters, or how Big Mama and them used to do those peach preserves, and then make that and sell that direct to market, direct to consumer. That's just my take on having a multi-pronged approach to the farm.
I want to jump in on this. I feel like you guys are having some amazing conversations. And I feel like, and I'm jumping in because there's a next question, which I feel that you've already answered as far as the labor resources and how that has definitely changed for Black farmers within your career. But what about how has access to land? Has land access changed as well?
I think I want to address this.
Go for it.
So we just secured our land last year. So it's been 1 year on a 10-acre farm. And I want to say that that was just incredibly difficult to secure. And I think that not just for us, but for people of color generally, to secure land. If you think about the county where we started farming, Montgomery County, Maryland, about 93% of the reserved land is documented, this is documented by USDA, is in families, is family owned. Over 90% of the farmers in Montgomery County identify as Caucasian. So now think about you coming with your whatever ideas that you think you have with no money and wanting to get your hand on this piece of land. It was difficult. We tried everything from leasing to buying to everything from the USDA taking forever to borrow you the money that is not enough to buy land. USDA has $600,000 cap for farm ownership loan. There is no $600,000 farmland in Montgomery County or in Howard County where we currently are. It's just not possible. But even if you did find that, it takes at least 6 months or more to get through the entire wheels that turn very slowly. Who is going to wait for that? Which seller is going to wait for that? Eventually, we had to devise a means to do something different. And the means was to actually go outside of our network and then find a lender, a mission-based lender in New York that came to Maryland to register an LLC for the sole purpose of borrowing us money to buy land, which we got as a steal for $1 million. Who can afford $1 million? But I want to say that when we think about land access, we always think about, just buying land. The amount of money you need to sink into the land to make it work is almost as much as the cost of the land itself. And
Exactly.
Yep.
and transitioning, like last year, I feel like we spent almost $400,000 after spending $1 million to acquire the land. Who's going to borrow us the $400,000? It's from our own money. And then
Yes.
you end up having the kind of season that we had last year where there was a drought and no rain for like 40 days straight. It is huge losses. Who is helping us to recoup that? So it's land access is the beginning. But even when you get the land, the work has just started.
Yeah, and if I can just piggyback off that, I mean, there's a reason why those barriers are high, because there isn't a high success rate for farmers. So the lenders are seeing, what is your plan? How are you going to guarantee that you're going to be successful? And so what we've seen, I didn't get to complete my introduction, but as part of working as a cooperative, we understand that we have to create a model. One, to be able to train our returning and aspiring farmers, because none of us experienced farmers really have the time to do that. And then you put all that energy, like Dr. said, and like Farmer Gail, into training somebody who may not stick around. But as a cooperative, we can create an incubator type model where we can use that land to give access to aspiring farmers, give them that training ground, get them acclimated to the workload. And if they're still there after a season and they haven't reached the point where they're ready to start their own farm business, this is a pool of people that we can use throughout our region as workforce. And they can continue to get mentorship from some of our experienced farmers. And then we as a cooperative can actually help to purchase land that may be protected either by the states in Virginia or Maryland, or by some of these private land trusts, who all they want to see, in order to sell, they want to sell land at an affordable price to people who they can trust will be using regenerative practices and will be feeding, using that food to address, food and nutrition insecurity. But we as folk need to understand, sometimes we have to take the time to actually go through an apprenticeship, the necessary training, and then all of that will come.
Okay. what I'd like to take it to another different angle. You know, political activism, right? We as a community, we are not putting enough time and effort into investigating the individuals that we are electing as our governmental officials. We need to research these people before we vote for them and ensure that they stand for the values that we want them to stand for. So when they are in office, the regulations, the laws, the taxes are based on decisions that are being made for the masses, not for the folks with the deep pockets. And I say us as a community because, you know, we have people that we may gravitate towards just because they're the popular individual at the moment, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to make all the right decisions for us. You know, we have counties and states and areas where property taxes are forcing some of our folks out of their homes, off of their land, right? And why is that happening? We are not involved at the local level. We're not involved at the state level. We're not paying attention to the folks making the decisions that affect the regulations and the rules that are adversely affecting us from a land ownership standpoint.
Okay, I'm gonna go on to the next question. I feel like you guys already answered the two questions before without me even asking them. So, how does your work as Black farmers connect to broader struggle for economic justice in the African American communities?
So I can start. Again, I want to wear my hat as a um, university professor here. One of the first, when I used to teach agricultural business management, one of the first slides I would show my students is the spread of income for farmers in Maryland. And in Maryland, 51% of farmers make less than $10,000 a year from farming. That is not a profession anybody wants to choose, let alone a person of color, period. Now, but we do need to eat. We do need to grow food that is good for us. We do need to, enter this kind of businesses that our ancestors, did with, by force, but they were skilled enough to do and build a foundation in this country. So how do we do this? I always tell my husband, who is my business partner, that the reason why a lot of farms get bankrupt and get broke is that nobody's looking at the numbers. Nobody's looking at the numbers. On our farm, I could not tell you the difference between a kale and a spinach. I can't. The first time we had TV cameras come on the farm and my husband was uprooting carrots from the ground, I oohed and ahed like the rest of the camera crew. And he was like, "What is wrong with you?" I said, "I did not know carrots grew on the ground. I thought they grew up on trees." I was like, "Oh my God, what sort of farmer are you?" But I can tell you that it takes XYZ amount of money to grow that carrot. I can tell you the profitability of every variety of crop because I am on the numbers. Every Friday, I'm on the numbers. I'm looking at the markets that we're going, how much we're making there, how much we're spending on gas, how much we're spending on marketing. I'm telling stories on social media that makes people feel like they are part of the business. This is something that we don't do enough of as Black farmers. And this year, this is something that I intend to do something about. Now that we have our own space, we're going to do ag tourism with a twist. And that twist is that people get to come to classes here, especially if you are Black and you are female. You get to come and learn not about plucking carrots. No, I don't know how to teach you that, but I could teach you about how to read a balance sheet and a P&L statement. That we're going to do because I believe that is where our salvation is as Black farmers.
Very well said. Very well said. I'd like to chime in, on that. And, that kind of detailed analysis to treat your farm like a business, a real bona fide business, is something that most farmers, they can't make that chasm from growing collard greens and carrots to being a CPA or an accountant. I mean, the kind of thing you just described is very, very detailed. So the question is, how do you partner and how do we collectively make those kinds of resources available? Because farming is a hard endeavor, sun up to sundown. No one has the time. Thank God you guys have someone like you to do that for your farm. But that is not something attainable with all the work that's involved. At 4:30 in the morning, late at night, you need a partnership for that. So there's no way a farmer, all due respect, could grow high quality fruits and vegetables, manage the land, and do a balance sheet, P&L, things like that. So the question is, how do we collectively maybe put together a turnkey operation where there's some collective comprehensive resources where you have a cooperative of marketing, accounting, strategic planning, pooling resources, even to acquire land. So, yes, those things are important, but I think now, especially more than ever in the current political landscape, we are all that we got right now. We are the people we've been
Man.
looking for. We are the people we've been waiting for. Ain't nobody gonna come and save us. And that is apparent now more than ever. So I would like to throw out there, and I know you can't save the world on one call like this, but my instinct is telling me that we may need to put together the accounting resources, someone who is proficient in that. Someone is proficient in all the things that can make a farm successful, and then outsource that part of it. So that's just my based upon my and you all have way more experience than I do at this level. I just kind of fell into the farm and I'm leaning into it from a medical perspective. And one thing I would like to throw out there as a creative thing, Bloom Ranch is partnered with MLK Hospital, Martin Luther King Hospital, and we're putting together specific boxes based upon medical conditions. For example, we have a doctor who's a very prominent urologist. He specializes in kidney stones. So we're going to do a stone box. People who have kidney disease, there's certain vegetables they cannot eat, certain vegetables they can't eat. So they're very, very, it's not a difficult challenge. He'll tell his patients that you can only eat broccoli, cauliflower, kale, basil, things like that. When they get to the store, they just get lost. So what about tailoring? And then we have a pressure box, a box to help bring down blood pressure, your turnips, your beets, your garlic. So partner with maybe a local healthcare facility where now your box, your produce is tweaked and being a part of an existing conversation. The conversation we have now is people are getting sicker. Chronic diseases are on the rise. Why can't Black
Yes.
farmers in particular have something to say about that conversation in your prospective community? So we are experimenting with specific boxes that are scientific, or vegetables that scientifically prove that certain vegetables will actually affect certain types of medical conditions. So I want to throw that out as an idea that we've seen enormous traction with that.
Yeah, and I'll kind of chime in on the question of how our work connects to the broader economic struggle of Black folks. Well, I think we've always been second class citizens, since we arrived here, being an island in the vast ocean of wealth, starving in a grocery store. And it comes down to the fact that we haven't really found meaningful work, or work that we find meaningful to us. And you can go into any urban city across the country and see that, tons of folks who realize that they don't fit into typical corporate America. And so I'm realizing that our farms are really safe spaces, and places where we can build build culture, um, and then realizing that we built this country. And I know that, you know, that our history of exploitation and all that sort of thing has turned us away from agriculture, but we really have that the skills and talent which built this country through cotton, tobacco, and everything else. And once we realize that we can do the same thing again, but this time for ourselves, then we will really be an unstoppable force.
To kind of circle back to what Tope was sharing earlier, uh, the finances. I can attest to the fact, um, prior to becoming a farmer, I worked in finance and accounting for 20 plus years. And I tell folks all the time, had I not have that experience to eliminate the fear of the enormous debt load that I acquired when I became a farmer, my farm would not have been successful. Understanding your P&L, your balance sheet, your cash flow statements helped me to be a successful farmer because it always comes back to the numbers. I don't just grow vegetables. I produce the value added items. I provide a service through the CSA program. The diversity of my operation has contributed to its sustainability. By looking at my numbers on a continuous basis and early on in the establishment of my operation, allowed me to be able to then assess where and how to increase my cash flow to ensure that I can have a 99% on time payment rate with my creditors. Yeah, do I still have that ton of debt? Yes. But everything gets paid on time. And so they're always willing to give me more and give me more credit because that's the bottom line of any business. You're going to have debt. If you are a business owner, you're going to need to borrow money from someone. There's nothing wrong with having that debt, provided that you have a plan and you can back that plan up with the numbers to show how you are going to meet those obligations. And so, teaching, as Tope has shared, our community, those tools, those financial tools, is one of the ways that I believe we're going to enhance the pool of Black farmers in this country.
Okay. I'm gonna ask our next question. I'm kind of gonna piggyback of what Dr. Relaford said about partnering with the hospital. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, but I just wanted to know what relationships have you built with local restaurants, markets, or food programs? And I know you already mentioned the hospital, so any more partnerships?
We don't have any current partnerships with any restaurants. I don't, as a businessman, believe in wholesaling. To me, I believe in going straight to consumer like that. Although we have a significant farm, the numbers that we have crunched show that it's better to go straight from the farm to the consumer. However, we do want to have partnerships with very prominent um, restaurants and markets to show the trust factor that if we're at this market, we must be this, as seen at Whole Foods. I was using that as an example. But as far as for me, I get way more value financially going direct to my consumer, no wholesaling at Bloom Ranch.
So at Deep Roots Farm, what we do is we do a little bit of wholesale, and we're ramping up a little more this year on that. With our restaurant accounts, it's only 30% off of our retail. We believe our produce is considered very hyper local, organic produce, and its value compared to anything they're going to buy from Cisco or another distributor dictates the price point that we're going to sell that produce as. We also work with the Fresh Farms, an organization that manages farmers markets that we participate in, and they have a food prints program. So we sell a significant amount of produce to them as well for those programs. Again, at a 30% discount and sometimes at retail, right? We finding partners that understand the value of our produce, and as farmers ourselves, demanding a higher price point for our produce and standing our ground is something that more and more of us have to buy into, because yes, they can go on the open market and buy it for, $2 or $3 or whatever, but that produce is coming from Central America, South America, as far as Israel or wherever. It's not going to provide the same quality that I believe my produce is going to get them. And that's if I don't believe that, then how can I ask them to believe that and value it any differently?
Mhm.
I want to add something to that, and which is that the it's important to understand that it's not everybody that you should do business with, and that's something that we all have to get comfortable with doing. I remember there was a time we had this dispute with a government sponsored program. They wanted to buy carrots at $1 per pound. And I said, no, we're not going to sell the carrots to you at $1 per pound. And this person, I don't want to give anything away, this person decided to lecture me about how they could get the same carrots for 75 cents a pound from wherever. And I decided to teach him some basic accounting. And I told him how long it takes for a carrot to be in the ground and what this means in terms of ground rent, and what it means for how much the 70 cents that it takes somebody to wash and pack that pound of carrots, that you then want to add another 30 cents without looking at the seed cost and every other profitability. And I told him, I said, eventually what you're trying to do is to make me as poor as the people you want to buy my produce to
That's
feed.
right. That's right.
Exactly.
And I said, no, we're not doing that. And I'm comfortable with not doing business with you, period.
Mhm.
And every time I tell my husband, I'm like, we must be comfortable stepping away from whoever
Yes.
and whatever
Absolutely.
if they don't see the value. And if they don't see the value now, it's not because they don't have the funds or the budget. No, it's because they just don't think that someone like me has a right to, make money from agriculture. In some people's minds, I should still be enslaved. And if I'm not enslaved, I should be breaking even at the very least. And that's something that we must not subscribe to. So we must A, know our numbers,
Mhm.
B, walk away when it does not make sense.
I
Yeah,
couldn't say that even more. Perfect. Well said. No, definitely well said. Knowing your value in any market, in any business, especially as people of African descent, is something I think that we underestimate. And like you said, we had some people, Cisco does this and this other distributor does that. I said, we cannot do a bag of onions for $15. We can't do that. That will send us in bankruptcy. So we decided that we will be very selective of who we partner with. Those restaurants and people know it, how unique and high quality vegetables that we provide. And the flavor is undeniable. Everybody has, here I'm sure, high quality fruits and vegetables. One thing that we are doing, we are growing certain unique vegetables that you can't get anywhere else. So you won't even be able to compare it because you won't be able to get it. So I think that's a unique thing that I would recommend is grow some things that are very, very unique and different that you can't get anywhere else. And you can set your price, especially if it's, something that's valuable that it can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, and just to add, part of knowing our value, we have to work collectively, because it doesn't make sense, or it doesn't do Farmer Gail no good if she's holding her ground, to get $6 per pound, for her mustard greens, and then I come around the corner and undercut her. So we have to work, collectively across the board, and then also work on educating the consumer on what the value should be. And part of that is working with our HBCUs to provide the evidence, the connection between our regenerative practices and human health. So that we understand that. And the other point, I do do wholesale and institutional markets, restaurants, because I think that to really address food and nutrition security, we have to be able to get or improve access to healthy food in our institutions, where we're sending our kids to in the farm to schools, where our folks are going to dine in the local restaurants, in the local corner stores, mini marts that are in our communities. That's where we have to improve access, to our products. And there is no shortage of interested buyers that want to buy from Black farmers, especially since the pandemic. And that was really one of the reasons why we decided to form a cooperative, because none of us on our own can really, meet the demand of a school. And we just got a MOU from a network of 82 schools in Virginia Beach that has 65,000 students. So I know I can't supply that, on my own, or none of the small farmers. And the reality is, our region has this big initiative about, creating a local food system, but the large acreage farms aren't growing food for human consumption. So if you think you're going to, you know, um, source that locally, then you're talking about the small, medium-sized farmers. You're talking about us. We're the ones that are growing the food for human consumption, and the food that you want to eat because of the care that we're taking. And so to be able to make that work, we realize that we have to form cooperative networks. We have to get hubs and aggregation facilities where we can combine, our tomatoes, to be able to send to the local school and the restaurants.
One thing I want to kind of throw in is that as an observation, is that when we send in I practice still 1 day a week. So I give all my patients a box of vegetables every 2 weeks as their medicine. What I found is that some people don't know what basic things are. They say, Dr. Rutherford, this looks beautiful, but I don't know what it is. Like it could be, bok choy. It could be Swiss chard. So we've got a lot of education. They know what collard greens are, mustard greens, turnips. But the challenge I have is, how do we educate our people about the value of vegetables that they're, maybe a little bit off the beaten path from what they're used to. That's just wanted to share that as an observation. They don't know what bok choy is. They say it's beautiful, but what do I do? What do I do with it?
I
That
think that,
actually
go ahead.
that actually leads me into my next question. How do you share farming knowledge within your community?
So again, I'd like to start that question. So if you come to our stand in the farmers market in Dupont Circle or Silver Spring, you'd see that before you see the price of the item, you're going to see um, other information that are very key, like where is this? Is this native to America, or is it native to Africa, or is it native to Japan? And then what's other benefits of this bok choy, of this komatsuna, of this, unique things? What are some of the health benefits? And then you see the price. We deliberately put the price last because we want you to make a decision about why this is good for you
Yep.
before you decide how much you want to pay for it. And then we also spend more time than normal with our customers while we're running your card. We're telling you, oh, okra in Nigeria, this is how we eat it. In Nigeria, this is how we eat this. In Japan, this is because my husband lived in Japan for a while, so he has a lot of Japanese cultural influences. So we would educate you about those things. Oh, you stir fry, maybe you can try to saute it instead. And then we encourage people, tag us on Instagram. Let's see what you're doing with it. And customers do that. And we've seen this is a good way of educating people.
Anyone else want to answer the question before
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll chime in. Yeah, just having, like Tope said, being in the community, being accessible, opening up your farm, for, volunteer opportunities, farm tours. And we know that to really connect and appeal to our people, we have to connect to all the senses. So doing cooking demonstrations and food samplings alongside having the product out, because once we can smell it and then we can taste it, that's really how you can reach people. And then putting recipes in their hand, so finding more creative ways to reach our folk.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask the last and final questions before we get to audience questions, because we do have 10 minutes left. Um, what role can historical Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, play in training the next generation of Black agricultural leaders?
I think that the role they could play is to help us with technology, artificial intelligence, various apps, and systems and algorithms that can make some of the things we do very easy. Maybe some finances, some apps or technology or AI driven technology with that. Maybe some technology. I do them. They have some soil testing, water testing types of things that are out there. But I think that the HBCU students, to me, could really lean into various technologies to help our farms more productive.
Is this a wish list? Is somebody taking?
Mm.
Yeah, technology is a good one. Also, there's a lot of different aspects of agriculture. It's not just about planting. There's engineering students that can help with designing wash stations and things like that. So, finding creative ways there. Um, Biology departments and chemistry departments, we talked about the importance of getting the evidence, connecting our practices in the soil to human health. That's a little researched area. Nobody's really thoroughly researching that. We know all about the bad microbes, but what about the good microbes on the surfaces of food that really are significant to us as Black folks? So those are some of my thoughts, and being spaces, um, um, like I said, where we can engage with the community, farmers markets on the campus, getting into dining services. That's a new market for farmers, especially in HBCU. Having even a fresh salad bar, that might have greens from Tope or Gail's Farm, and highlight the Black farmer there, and we can create creative content. These are things that we as farmers, we have to do as any business. We have to get skilled at doing the marketing. It's not always the thing that we have time to do, are good at, especially nobody wants to, do an Instagram post, at 9, 10 o'clock at night after you've been working all day. So these are areas we're having, even students looking for hours, volunteer hours, or areas where they can help apply for grants so that we can get some resources. Yeah, I'll kind of stop there.
Okay.
Mr. Harper, Mr. Harper, can you unmute Farmer Gail, please? And I think, go ahead,
What's his name again?
Farmer Gail.
Yeah, I do not see him in the attendee list. Is there another name?
No, yes, she's still under Farmer Gail. But Mia, you can
Oh,
move
wait a
forward.
minute. Was that Sutton?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, guys, we have 5 minutes left. So at this time, please ask your questions in the chat, and I will be reading off the questions y'all asked previously. So the first question we have is, if I wanted to start a community farm overseas, how do I get started, and how do I ensure it's sustainable and actually beneficial to the community?
Go find a host family and live with that community for at least 6 months before you decide anything.
The next question we have is, what is the average hourly rate salary for farm work?
That's kind of tough, but it can range from anywhere from minimum wage in your locality, maybe from $15 as it is in our county to $20 or more.
Mhm.
Are
Is that the
farmers
same? I'm sorry. Is that the same because you just gave out Maryland, but is that the same in California as well?
So, and I even actually give out Howard County, not the entire Maryland. So
Okay.
it depends on what the minimum wage is in your area.
Okay.
Yeah, and so just to touch on that, so if for me, for example, because I have H-2A workers, then my labor rate is determined by the Labor Department, which this year is 17 and some change. And so I have to pay that same rate to my American workers, no matter what their experience level is. And so basically right now would be, I think it's
1792, something
yeah, I
like
think
that.
that's what it
Mhm.
is this year.
Mhm.
But,
We
you
see
know,
the
in the
same. We see the
past,
same range. We see the same range here at Blooming on the West Coast between 17 to 20,
mhm.
21, 22, depending on the role they're playing on the farm.
Um, a student is asking why is there so little Black farmers, and her students
Hmm.
are 5 to 17.
Hmm. I think there are many reasons why there are very little Black farmers. One of the things that I think is the economic factor. Why would I choose a profession where I cannot make money? Why would I choose a profession where their access to land, to labor, and to capital is very restricted because of the color of my skin? And even when you mount those obstacles and you pass them, you then get into a market. Farmer Gail and I sell at a market in DC, DuPont Circle. This is the biggest game in town. And I can tell you that we've been there for about 4 years. And there are some people who come to that market regularly every Sunday and have never seen me or Farmer Girl before. They
Mhm.
just pass. One day they'll get there, they'll say, "Oh, how long have you been here again?" I'm like, "Really? I've been here since June 2020. Oh, I've never seen you because you don't see me." So
Mm-hmm.
those are also hurdles that we have to cross as Black farmers. But I believe strongly that, if we come together, like Theodorus has kept saying, we will prevail.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's again, the education, I think, is part of it. Sharing our experiences with individuals in our community, I think, will help to bolster growth of Black farmers in the future. There, again, there, it is a challenging field to be in and to make a living, but being able to get past the fear of, oh my gosh, I've got all this debt. Oh my gosh, I've got all these expenses. Oh my gosh, I'm not making as much money as I thought I was going to make. Getting past those fears can help, and to get past those fears, I think that's where our educational institutions come into play, really establishing curriculum and programs that will educate and teach that next generation of Black farmers so they can see it as a viable career option.
Yeah, yeah. And they want to come. Young folks want to come because they're answering that internal call, that health and wellness. They want to be on the land. Us that's been out there, gotta do our work, make it more attractive, support, mentor them, help get access to land, those things.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say that this is over at 1:15. So if you have questions, which I see the chat is really filling up, and I'm going to let Ms. Thomas get to that. But feel free to ask the questions. They're really ready to answer for you.
Good. I would like to say to thank you all for inviting me here. I have another presentation to give right at 10 a.m. on the West Coast. So I just want to thank you all and congratulations on providing such a platform and leadership for something as important as this. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
Labor you
you.
as well.
And information about Dr. Relaford you can find in the chat, and we're going to just keep everyone else here to answer the questions. Thank you so much.
The next question I have is, does anyone work with natural food dyes? And how can I have my scholars visit for a field trip or engage in farming and business as we are promoting kid internship?
So I actually do that on a regular basis where I have University of Maryland students come out, folks from different other colleges and universities. So just email, reach out, have a couple of dates in mind, and we can schedule something for you to do on farm, internships, field trips, all of that at Deep Roots.
So we are going to start offering farm tours in April, but I want to also push back here and say that most of the time when we, as a community of Black people, want to visit farms, we would want to visit the farms, the Black farms, for free without paying for the labor. We have to normalize, paying for these things. We have to normalize it. Farmer Gill or myself say, come to our farm and you pay X dollars per person for the time and for the training and for to invest in the farms. It should be okay. It has to
Right.
be okay. We cannot expect it to be free, because if it's free, then we continue to, mount this cycle that we're in. So again, we're going to start offering tours in the spring, as from April. Please follow us on all social media platforms at Dodo Farms is our name, and you will see the announcement when we start offering this. Thank you.
Thank you for making that point, Topa. Yes, our tours are not free. I should have that little disclosure there. My time is not free,
Yes.
because, and again, folks need to understand, and they need to value our time. They need to value my experience. Just like
Yes.
any professor has gone to college and gotten their undergraduate and their master's degree. Yes, I went and got an undergraduate study as well. And starting a farming business is like going to college. All of the knowledge and experience that I have amassed over the last 15 years have value, and that value need to be respected, and folks need to be willing to pay for that.
Yes.
Yeah, and thank you all for uplifting that. And I will add to the question about the natural plant dyes. I know Xavier, I'm not sure his contact information is doing some things in DC area. Also Plantation Park Heights in Baltimore, the folks there. I know they're growing indigo. But then again, this is also an opportunity for young folks, whether you're thinking of the fashion industry. Agriculture is a base for many different industries, and any farmer, any one of us over here will grow anything that there's a market for. If you say that, hey, you want us to grow this particular plant because of the dye or this particular fiber that can be made into clothing, that's what we want to do. And then work with other young entrepreneurs, business owners who can then spawn off of that foundation, to create other businesses like fashion. How many Black designers out there really source all of their material, from local farmers? So there's plenty of opportunity.
Another question was asked, how do we reach out if we have people who are interested?
Please
So
reach
let me
out to us via
respond.
email. I
I
think
was
I've
gonna-
already, sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, so everyone's contact information, their website is on the Coppin State University link. So you can find their web pages and all of that's there. So make sure that you get on the Coppin State University Black History page, and you can find access to their information to everybody on the panel.
What radical/creative community building can happen that will grow and strengthen the Black labor force on farms?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. What radical/creative community building can happen that will grow and strengthen the Black labor force on farms?
Well, I mean, creating incubator farms. Like I was saying, there's a lot of land that's available, public and private land, and a lot of it is underutilized. We've been reached out just in the last 2 weeks. We, as our cooperative, with, I mean, more than 400 acres of land from people that want us to lease it. Now we have to kind of overcome that hurdle on these lease agreements, because nobody wants to repeat, sharecropping. Nobody wants to be exploited. As particularly as Black and Indigenous farmers, we want access to land in perpetuity if it's coming from others. And if it's land that is Black owned, we want to figure out how can we retain it, and use these opportunities. So one of the models that we're actually working on now is, we're starting small with a Black landowner in Virginia, has about 20 acres, and we're going to do a partnership agreement with them. Whereas what's produced on that land, they will get a percentage as their contribution as a landowner, and we'll use that whatever's produced into to help supply our farm and school program, which I just mentioned, but also use it as an opportunity, a space to connect beginning farmers who want to get out of the city. We're finding money where we can pay stipends. No, nobody can not work, and just come out there for free. And then, looking out to our other supporters, people who have building skills. We got to build, housing, for folks to stay there. But create that pipeline, so it can be an alternative for a young person to college. Maybe you spend the next 3 years doing a year incubator, and then kind of hopping around to some of our other experienced farms, developing your business model, your interest, and that sort of thing. And now you really are prepared to walk into a lender and say, I'm ready to buy my own property.
Right. And one of the things I want to say toward that is, be willing to make sacrifices. Sacrifices is something that in our community we've gotten away from. We don't remember, but our ancestors made sacrifices for us to be here. And when I made the decision that I wanted to farm full time, realized that I was not going to be able to live the lifestyle that I was living before. I would have to live at a bare minimum. During my transition into this land, which I did purchase through funding with the USDA, and as Tope pointed out, it was a horrendous process. It took almost a year. So from one home to the farm, as I thought it was going to happen a specific time, and it didn't. So there was a period of time where I lived in a tent. I pitched a tent on the rented land that I was staying on, and I was in my 40s when I did this. And I stayed in that tent until I closed on my land. And then I acquired an RV, which I still live in to this day, because the cost to build a house that I had thought I borrowed enough money for doubled during the pandemic. So after the pandemic, I was not in a financial position to pick up a second mortgage and build my home. Now, those are sacrifices. And we have to be willing to make sacrifices for the greater good, not just for ourselves, but for our community. Did I do this just because I think I'm going to become a millionaire farmer? No, I did make those sacrifices because I was willing to do that because I wanted to farm. I wanted to grow food for my community. And that is what that making that sacrifice has allowed me to do.
Um, so we have 5 minutes left of this meeting.
I saw somebody had their hand up as well. Are you still available? Okay, yes. Miss Katiana, I'm sorry. Can you put it in the chat? Because we are not, can you put their question in the chat? All right, so I'm also looking that Dr. Ron Williams, he actually was sharing that his entrepreneurship center is developing a focus on food production as part of the emphasis on entrepreneurship and manufacturing as well. There was a student who did ask the questions, why do farmers get less than $10,000 a year?
So I will say in the first 5 years of most businesses, you're in a startup phase. In a farming business, it can extend beyond that depending on your infrastructure needs. For my operation, it took 5 years. Those first 5 years, there was a lot of infrastructure that was needed. So everything that I earned went back into investing in the infrastructure, putting in buildings, putting in roadways, getting electricity, getting a new well. Those are high dollar infrastructure items in a farming operation. So I chose to not give myself a salary and reinvest that money in the business. And so this is year 6 of my operation, where based on the financial projections that I've compiled for my operation, I will be able to give myself a reasonable salary this year. And so it's not that you're going to only make $10,000 every year. There will be a period of time where you will not make more than that because you have to reinvest in your business.
Yeah, and I think it's something like, um, I mean, it's really high. Maybe 90% of Black farmers I know in Virginia are farming at that subsistence level, and I think it's closer to under $5,000, per year. And to Farmer Gale's point, a lot of us don't start with a huge inheritance. We're not fifth
Mhm.
generation farmers with barns and all this sort of thing.
Right.
And even though even a white person can't technically be a fifth generation farmer, they means they had slaves that started that farm.
That's
But
right.
and that number is a little bit misleading in that those, although you are reinvesting the money that you are making back into your farm to get the irrigation, to get the equipment, you also are replacing a lot of times some of your food costs. So how does that
Yes.
show up on the bottom line? How does the transformation process show up on the bottom line? Just from being out there on the farm, breathing, clean air,
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
going through that healing that we all experience, when we get on the farm. So those are some things that don't really show up, and then we're finding new ways, finding new markets, new opportunities to actually make it financially viable and sustainable. And that comes, in my opinion, through cooperative economics. We're all hitting that ceiling at the top, and now we kind of have to link arms, to get further.
Okay, I want to say to respond to your question, Katiana, you can find more information or you can get in contact with all the farmers. Just go on Coppin State University Black History Month, and you'll be able to have access to each of the farmers' information. So the question is another question about, are all or most of the crops organic? I've had the pleasure of talking, especially with Theolonis and his group, and I know there's some farmers that are out here. So I don't know if you want to raise your hand if you're a farmer already here. I really appreciate the community all coming together to be a part of this conversation. But can you please definitely talk to us about how the crops are organic? And chemical free and all of those things that people want to know. Another question that was asked too is eating within the season. I remember that was important because a lot of stuff right now, it's not grown at this particular time. So there's twofold questions, if you can respond to that.
So for my operation in particular, we are organic and will be certified this year by the USDA. I've always grown organically, which means I'm not using any synthetic fertilizers or chemical additives. Um, and the reason for the certification from the USDA is because a lot of my customers are asking for it. It will also allow me to charge a higher price point for certain items that I produce. And as far as the second part of that, if you can repeat that again for me.
Eating with the seasons.
Yeah,
Oh,
eating with the
yeah, eating with
seasons.
the seasons. Eating with the seasons is very important for our bodies to harvest the particular elements from the vegetables that they need. During the winter months, we need more vitamin C. Eating storage, we eat more storage crops. We eat more sweet potatoes. You know, I've been eating sweet potatoes almost every day this winter. Um, Eating roasted carrots and roasted radishes, those type of vegetables. And, you know, those things tend to nourish us because that is the season that we should be consuming them in. The greens are there, but the storage vegetables are an important staple during the winter months.
Right. Thank you. It is now 1:16. I appreciate each and every one of you for joining us. Thank you so much for this amazing conversation. And again, I want to thank Mighty Thunder Cloud, their farming program, Deep Roots Farm, Dodo Farms, and Bloom's Ranch with Dr. Relaford as our special guest. If you want to know more information, please support our Black businesses. Please go on Coppin State University Black History Month. I posted the links, each one of their websites for you, and let's support each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone. Take
Thank
care.
guys
you.
for
And
sharing your
thank you, Mia
time
Thomas.
Thank you.
with us.
Bye.
Y'all have a good one.
And that concludes today's program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do y'all have don't forget the attendance list for me?
Yeah, Kelly will send it to you.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Mia.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me.
Oh, this was awesome. You did an awesome job. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too.